Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Back for another episode of the Draxx Life podcast, where we'll chat about some of the weird and the wondrous. Let's get to the show. All right, guys, we're live. So today we're talking about WWE, WWF. I don't know why I decided or wanted to talk about this, but I know we're all feeling a little depleted, some more of us than others. So let's just see where this is going to go.
Yeah.
So why don't you so today, what is going on today, Rob? There is some event within this.
Yes.
What do you want to call this? This form of entertainment, art form, sport? What do you guys call this?
It's the industry term is sports entertainment, and that's what the WWE/WWF is. So the reason why we're doing this today is the Royal Rumbles tonight.
All right, take me
Saturday
through. What
night.
is a Royal Rumble?
So the Royal Rumble is an annual event where it's one of the biggest events on the calendar year for professional wrestling, and the winner of the Royal Rumble gets a title shot to win the ultimate title, now called the Universal title, in WrestleMania. So the winner of the Rumble tonight is going to fight in WrestleMania in the main event in WrestleMania, which is it's basically the Super Bowl. It's the Daytona 500. It's the Stanley Cup. It's the ultimate stage. If you're a professional wrestler, you want to headline WrestleMania. So that's why the Royal Rumble is big tonight, because the winner is admitted to that.
So this is like almost like a playoff match that determines if you will be elevated to this next like round in the tournament or in whatever. Is WWE just like one massive tournament or no?
No, it's more of a there's levels, and I would say there's the main eventers. So you have the biggest personalities and the best wrestlers at the top, and then you have several divisions. So it's more actually like European soccer, if anyone is familiar with that, where you have the Premier League, then the Championship, then League One. So you have the tiers. This is the word I was looking for. You have the tiers of wrestlers, and for tonight, you also have big cameo appearances. So what Vince McMahon, who started this whole thing, who everyone knows, and he usually brings back old school cameo appearances during the Royal Rumble. So we'll see.
So what do you mean, like different like legacy performers from like different eras?
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like a showpiece. So you'll have The Undertaker, and I'm sure both of you know who The Undertaker is. Like The Undertaker will come out.
Yes, I know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He won't be he's not on the roster performing weekly, but he'll show up at the Royal Rumble. Brock Lesnar, John Cena, same way.
So Joe, you're going to be there in attendance of this viewing of the Royal Rumble tonight, right? Now, are you looking forward to this? Is this something that is like getting you juiced up, or like how do you? Because I know you're not as deep within this community, within this tribe like Rob is. Rob is deep in it. I imagine if Rob went into a live match, he would bump into at least one other person he knows, and he probably would also be dressed maybe like one of the wrestlers, one of the wrestlers from a bygone era,
like the Macho Man Randy Savage.
Oh, exactly. Now, Joe, on the other hand, the Haitian Wanderer, what are your thoughts on this activity, this form of entertainment? Do you look down on it? What do you feel?
No, I don't look down on wrestling. I haven't watched any wrestling since I would say the 90s, since I was like a preteen. Um, I don't know. It's
So you grew out of it. Yes, you think it's childish.
I didn't say that. But I did grow out of it. It's just the characters that I love watching. Then they went on to different things. Some of them retired. It's just I kind of grew out of it. But I will say, out of all the events, the Royal Rumble was my favorite because the main event in the Royal Rumble, it's more like a free for all. So every 60 seconds, one wrestler runs into the ring and they battle each other, and the aim is to throw each wrestler over the top rope to eliminate each other to pretty much get to the last man standing. And to me, that's the most fun event that I've ever seen them actually have. Even for me personally, more than WrestleMania. It's
So with
just
Royal
so
Rumble,
chaotic.
how many people will be competing tonight?
I don't. Is it
30.
30, Rob? Yeah, okay,
30.
30.
Holy crap!
Yeah, it's just the visual of seeing that many people in the ring at the same time, all kind of fighting each other. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So Joe is exactly right. It's the only event ever in the year where you have all the wrestlers in the ring at the same time, and they're just trying to throw each other over the top rope. But obviously, we all know it's scripted, so there's a
Hmm.
storyline going here. But
Okay, so
yeah.
tonight. Is it already predetermined
Yes.
who's going to win?
Yes.
All right. So here's a question I've always had, and maybe you can. Yeah, I'm serious. I thought about this before. It's like, so like in sports, like let's say UFC, right? An actual combat sport, which is not scripted, right? You're getting paid, and you get paid. Your pay will be elevated based off wins. You win, you're gonna get higher pay than who lost. You're gonna get a base pay. If you're a champion, you should be getting paid even more because you're the champion. Within wrestling, since it is scripted, like how does that work? Like how do you know, like within that community with getting paychecks, who gets the most pay? What is that determined by? It can't be by winning because that's part of the script. Is
Mm-hmm.
it by like your popularity?
Yeah, it's how well it's called, like the lingo in wrestling lingo. It's called getting over. So also it's determined. I'm reluctantly gonna say, unfortunately, by Vince McMahon. So if Vince likes you, you're gonna get over. And what getting over means is you're getting titles, you're getting like the best um, main event slots, you're getting the last match of the night, and uh,
Which is like the pay-per-view, right? The last match
yeah,
is like the main event. Okay.
yeah. So it's what's unfortunate is I wish it was more like UFC, and we can, because I know you've been getting big into the combat sports, which is actually real. Like UFC is real. This is different, but I would argue wrestling is more entertaining than UFC. This might be a hot take. Corvo might don't kill me. Don't jump through the
No,
screen.
no. I think you'll be surprised. I think I'll
Yeah.
agree with you to an
Uh,
extent.
and because wrestling is not only is it physical and it takes a ton of athleticism to do it, but you also have to be a good actor and a good talker and a good in front of the camera. So you have to whereas if I'm a UFC fighter, who cares how what my interviews are like? But look
It
at The
does help,
Rock.
though. It does
It
help.
does. It does. It does. Look at Conor McGregor. Exactly.
Hmm.
Uh-huh.
No,
So,
yeah, I would agree. I would say I think in all the sports, it does help you, especially in fighting, like boxing. I would say the guys who made the most money boxing were also, in many cases, very charismatic on the microphone. But I see what you're getting. I think I would agree with you, Rob. I wouldn't disagree.
yeah.
It takes because when I looked at wrestling, it's more like it is dancing done by men who look like they could really, really mess you up in a fight if they wanted to. Would that? I mean, because it kind of is. It's this choreographed dance with these different throws. It has its own language of movements that all of the people within that community know. Like, right? There's probably names for. There's all names for these different moves that they do on each other, right? Like,
yeah,
there's like a common language, like common terms, right? So if you wanted to go to like a training school to learn how to be a professional wrestler, they're going to teach you like, all right, well, this is how you like a suplex, or this is that move, or that's that move. So yeah, it's kind of like, that's how I think about it anyway. It's like a dance. It's like these are like jacked, macho looking dancers.
Yeah, but that's exactly right. But
they need to be able to act and talk and show different emotions, etc. Like you were saying.
So that's what people don't appreciate about wrestling. They think it's like, oh, it's some fucking trailer park trash thing that people watch, but it's not, because there's legitimate injuries in wrestling. You gotta perform, even though yes, there is a storyline and a script, but you gotta be able to perform it. You can't fuck up, because if you fuck up, now you're fucking paralyzed, which is like Darren Drozdov. He got pile drivered, but someone did it the wrong way, and now he can't walk again. Think about that. Wow. Think about that. Think about you being in the ring. There's a script. We have to do this. The other guy fucks up, and now you're paralyzed. There's a lot on the line here.
Well, and that's happened a lot, right? There's multiple wrestlers that have become paralyzed. No.
Yes.
Yeah, I would actually go back and say I think that wrestling is more dangerous. I was having this conversation recently. I think WWE, those people who wrestle, and even outside of WWE, like these other brackets or camps or whatever you want to call them, I think that activity is way more dangerous than UFC. In the long run, these guys get beat to hell.
And another thing people don't appreciate, to your point, it's every week. There's no off week. SmackDown and Raw are every fucking week of the year, nonstop.
That's the crazy part. I don't understand how there's no
off season. There's literally no off season. Every Monday night, Raw is on.
Yeah, that's crazy. I think the Undertaker or Steve Austin, one of these two guys, they were on Rogan and they were talking about this, and that's exactly one of them made the point, and I didn't realize it. It's like the amount of matches that you might perform in, it's like being a baseball player. It's like you're on the road all year round. Every week you're performing, and like in some cases these are big guys, like 200 pounds plus, jumping off the high ropes, landed on the mat. Like you putting a toll on your body. Like that's going to add up over time.
Yeah, it's not like being a baseball player. I got to disagree with that.
No, not
because
like
a baseball player, you stand around for most of the game.
Yeah, I only meant in the sense that like baseball games, like there's a lot of baseball games a year, like right? Isn't it like 180 games or something like that?
I think 162.
162.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're a basketball player, there's like 85 games.
I think it's 81 or 82.
Okay, so
it's like hockey.
Significantly less. So it's like with wrestling, it's going to take up your whole year. It's not like a short window where you play it. It's not like 4 or 5 months out of the year. It's like no, like 12 months out of the year. We're always on the road. We're very rarely are you getting downtime to like fully recuperate, heal, let your body kind of just like regain its strength. You're just like at it again and again and again.
Yeah, exactly. And it also, if we want to think about it on a personal level, these people have lives. So you're traveling, you're in a different city every 4 days, basically, because you got SmackDown and you got Raw. SmackDown is on Friday night, Raw is on Monday night. You're in a different place every week. It's crazy. And you're putting your body on the line. But go ahead. Sorry.
No. Finish what you're going to say.
You're putting your body on the line. You got to perform in front of the camera. You got to give a promo. That's why the best wrestlers, like look at The Rock. why do you think The Rock became such a explosively big actor? Because every fucking week he was on Raw cutting promos. That's what people liked.
He learned how to act through wrestling. Like that was his boot camp to learn how to perform.
Yeah, and he was amazing at it. And you should see. So it's called in the we're gonna throw wrestling terms out there, folks, because I know the lingo. And when you come out and the crowd goes insane, it's called a pop. So the pops that The Rock gets when he comes out, just because a couple times he's come back just to make a cameo interview. He's not wrestling. He's just making like an interview or a promo. The pops that The Rock gets when he comes out, and I saw one when it was at the Barclays Center at Brooklyn. I was lucky enough to see The Rock unannounced, wasn't billed to be there, showed up. The place went absolutely the noise. I'm getting goosebumps right now talking about it. The noise, you'll never hear anything like it. So it does move people in a certain way.
Why do you think, so just changing the subject for 1 second, like why do you think, like we've talked about sports. We had a podcast, we talked about sports, and right, the whole goal of that was it was you and Joe, and you, in many cases, you guys were trying to like convey to me why people like this, why there's value in it. And so I want to ask the same question now. It's like with wrestling, because wrestling is like massively well liked. Like I've seen images of these events, and it's just like sold out arenas, stadiums, what have you. Like people love this activity. Like grown, it's like not for kids. Like kids to adults love it. Like why? Like why do you think there's like that degree of appeal? Because everyone knows. I mean, it's like Santa Claus. It's like after maybe when their kids are younger and they're watching it, they don't necessarily know how choreographed it is. But like you, as an adult, you know it's not real. It's a dance. It's a performance. Why do you think people love it so much? Because people love it.
Joe, do you want to go first? Because I have my answer if you want.
I think there's a couple of things. People love watching athletes perform on a big stage, doing kind of like stunts and death-defying like leaps and things like that. And I think there's like a community aspect to it as well. People like congregating together and just watching something and kind of interacting with each other. I think those to me are the two biggest reasons why wrestling and as a whole sports is a big thing.
Yeah, I would agree, and so it gives you, if you're gonna sit down on your couch and watch entertainment, wrestling honestly gives you the best of all worlds. Not in both worlds, all worlds, because it gives you athleticism. You get to see people doing, as Joe said, like death-defying stunts, people jumping off. Dude, Shane McMahon jumped off the top of the Titantron. Literally, he did it. He did it. And it gives you that. It gives you comedy. It gives you like inspiration based on the promos. It gives you like some kind of a storyline, soap opera esque. So the people that like all these bullshit reality shows that are also scripted, it gives you that too. So it gives you the soap opera appeal. It gives you the physicality and the athleticism, and like the stunt devil aspect. But it also gives you something more. It gives you the humor and the comedy underneath it. Is, I think, the biggest thing that's understated about wrestling, because it's, when I watch wrestling and I watch old Dusty Rhodes promos and I watch old Bobby Heenan promos, it's just hilarious. It's fucking, but they're actually witty and good. It's but they're doing it as performers. It's everything that people want to watch on TV, but it's all rolled into one thing, and it's live, and it's every week. So dude, let's add all those elements too. All right, I'm getting worked up.
I know, I can hear you because you're getting a little distant. I'm like, yeah, his hand gestures are going. I know it. Yeah. No, I remember when I was watching one, I was listening to one of these the podcasts where, because now you have a lot of I would call them, like, what era would you call like Steve Austin?
It's called the Attitude Era.
Okay, so like the Undertaker, Steve Austin. There's like one other guy. They're starting to make, these guys have all retired. They're in their late 50s, 60s, and like they've kind of hit the end of the road when it comes to wrestling, unless it's like what you're describing, like they make these cameos, but they're not, their bodies can't handle like the degree of damage that would be necessary. But one of these guys was talking about like how he got into it, and he used a particular phrase which I like, it made me think about wrestling from a different perspective. I was like, oh, okay, like that makes sense. He called it like, he's like, this is like a genre of like sports theater, something like that. He used like something like a similar phrase, and I was like, that makes a lot of sense, because it's like they're actors that perform in plays every week. It's just that the plays are like, they're athletic plays. It's like, that's what it is. It's simulated athleticism or simulated sport, but as a theater performance, as a play, right? You watch these guys, you have the heroes, you have the heels, and it's like the Battle of the Titans, and they're gonna fight it out. Like reading any like old mythology tale of like good and evil or heroes fighting. It's like you get to watch that live on stage, and like these guys do look like freaking heroes out of a book. They're like well over 6 foot. They're all jacked and muscular, and you know they project the look and feel of like power and strength and like, you know, superhero like quality. And then you get to watch them like fight it out, and like you've said, like there's the backstories, there's enemies, there's a long mythology behind a lot of these characters. It makes it easy to understand why people would like it. You're right. It's like, why do people watch soap operas on TV? And this is like much more real than one of those, right?
Oh, 100%. And that's, wrestling is, I would say, the word I would use is captivating. It just engrosses you in a community. As Joe said earlier, there's also a community of the wrestling fans, which don't overlook that either. The wrestling fans are cool, and being in that community is also a whole different subject. But these men and women are doing extraordinary things, and they're putting their bodies on the line. At any moment, you can break your leg. You can get paralyzed. I don't mean to be dark, but there's also serious CTE issues. Like, look at Chris Benoit. Look at Eddie Guerrero. These people that committed suicide because they were entertaining people. They're doing it for you, and
they're doing it for themselves. The feel of the crowd, there's
probably
the escalation that's given to them, the applause. They're like gladiators.
They are. That's exactly what they are. And I'm sure you get like a huge dopamine rush when you win a match and the crowd is going nuts. And then Stone Cold goes up, he chugs a couple beers, and then he fucking goes back into the locker room. But it's actually a fascinating business, but it's also a business where there's a dark element that what we don't see on the television, and these people put themselves through a lot of shit. But we can get into that if you want, Corvo.
Yeah, no, because I'm thinking. I wanted to ask before we talk about that. I wanted to ask Joe, because I know the answer for you, Rob. But Joe, have you ever gone to a live performance?
No,
have you ever gone?
no,
Okay.
I've not. But to piggyback on a particular part of what Rob said, and also I think I kind of see where you're going with that question. I think personally, I've never seen a sports fan base as rabid as wrestling fans, and I've seen a lot of sports fan bases, but wrestling fans are probably take the cake from me.
Yeah, were they from Philadelphia? Yeah, I bet
That
you though.
a big part of how that industry works. Even like the small time wrestling groups, they're just so into um they're into the sport and how the other athletes actually kind of promote each other into the different ranks of the level, like you said, EPL. It's just wild to see.
So I did not follow wrestling as a kid. I had friends that did, so I've seen some matches. But I would say the thing that kind of made me interested and it helped me see like, oh, I can get behind this. I see why people like it. Was when me, Robert, Babier, and Andrew went to a like what you're describing, Joe, like a local low tier, amateurish, or people who are aspiring to maybe one day go pro wrestling match that a friend of ours was hosting.
Yeah.
And we got to sit up front, right at the ropes, let's say. And when someone at one point in the match, someone flew over the top rope and fell right in front of us. And it's like you look at the person, it's like a relatively big guy, and you're like, that's incredible. Like, just a fact, like, no matter what, no matter the choreography, no matter the script, the scripting, the story, you literally are a grown man flying over a rope and landing on, I don't know, freaking cement with a thin layer of carpet over it. Like, that was like, damn, this is awesome. This is really cool. But I think I might not have gotten that feel, like physically, viscerally, if I hadn't been there. Because then you're like, no, like I just witnessed a human being flying from the air and land on a freaking hard ass ground right at my feet. And it's like, oh, okay, this is why people like this. This is why that mom over there with her kids is screaming at the top of her lungs at one of these characters as if as if that character is a real person. And I was like, damn, this is cool.
Yeah, it's called the independent circuit. So there's a couple of independent like CCW, ICW. It's wrestling is just the best. It's if honestly, I'm just gonna say it right now. If you're gonna sit down and want to watch entertainment, I personally can't see anything better than that. You get everything. It gives you everything. Now, that being said, you got to know that as a child, I thought it was real, but you got to know that this is a production. Once you realize that and you're self-aware about it and you accept that, that's when you go to the next level in wrestling. And it's just spectacular. The best, you know what I do, folks, when I'm down in the dumps and I want to pick me up, I just go and watch a Macho Man Randy Savage promo. Just watch him talk to Mean Gene. Just watch it. That's it. That's what I do.
Dude, it's so crazy. Like, this is outside of wrestling, but wrestling, any of these things, it's like how, as human beings, it's like we find these certain characters, like fictitious characters that they do. I mean, I see it. It makes sense why people follow that care about wrestling, right? It's like we have these characters, whether it's from TV shows, from movies, from books we read, and they like live with us. And like you said, we get revitalized through them. When you're depressed, you watch, a clip of Seinfeld, or you watch, a promo of a wrestler you liked from back when you were a kid, and it's like that person, that character has been living with you, and it kind of gives you a little pick me up. It's kind of an amazing thing that I think we all do it. We just pick our different characters from different mediums, whether it's wrestling, it's a book, it's a TV show, a movie, a play. Yeah, I can see that. I get behind that.
I see what you mean. So I do have a question for both of you. Who's your favorite wrestler, or some of your favorite wrestlers?
I love this question.
Yeah.
Damn. I think I could like rattle off a bunch of names, but it is definitely because it's the 90s, it's more of the Attitude Era. Although there's a few just before that. So definitely Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Ultimate Warrior, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Damn, I want to choose 5, but those are the 4 that really, really stand out to me.
You like the Heartbreak Kid, the sweet chin music?
Sweet chin music. Yeah. I didn't realize how much of an asshole he was, like behind the scenes, but he's more of a church-going guy now. But yeah, those are definitely my 4. I love that question.
He's a Jesus fella. No. But yeah, so I like those wrestlers. They're all good.
Let me see. Who am I gonna pick? Well, for me, I don't think I have the depth of knowledge, but like the people I do remember watching, like Stone Cold, I always liked, though his fighting style is kind of a little bit boring.
Bland,
right? He's like his character was like the beefcake at the backwoods watering hole. You know what I mean? Like he's the guy you would see maybe if you went to like a bar, like a roadhouse, and he's like throwing down. Like he didn't do anything. He's just kind of strong, didn't give a shit.
But his personality is what really stung. It kind of popped out to everyone, and that's why people gravitated. I know that's why I gravitated towards him.
Well, and I don't think he like seeing him kind of do interviews outside of his character. Like I don't think there's as big of a gap between his character and himself.
Yeah.
As there is for some of these other guys. Like I watched like The Undertaker. I also like The Undertaker because I just thought it was such strange. Like he lived that role, and I remember just watching him and like the way they'd always do his entrances and like the theatricality around him. I really liked.
Yeah, with Paul Bearer coming out with the urn. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so it's like I was always like, I think I was a kid, I was frightened by him. Like he scared me because it's like I was like, who is this a real person? Like, who is this guy? And so like for him though, when you listen to him talk, like it was a character. He created like an actor, a character that people really liked. But it's like that's not him. Like in his house, he's not walking around and like as a 7-foot tall man with like freaking long leather jackets and like looking like he came out the tomb. Like I think he had a wife, he has kids. Like it was a role. But whereas like Steve Austin, I feel like if you were to run across him or see him in his home, there ain't that much of a difference. He's drinking Bud Light and he's on like his tractor, like cutting his grass or something. Yeah,
you watched the Undertaker on Joe Rogan. That's what you did.
Yes.
Did he?
Yeah, exactly. It's like he was like, I found this character out there. I really like. I like The Rock as well. I think I watched. I still was watching a little bit when he was in, and I think I liked him because he brought the performance aspect, the character aspect, the charisma, like to another level because he was just so good, or he became really, really good on the mic. And I remember watching him and being like, this guy's like fun to watch. Like he's just so freaking smooth on the microphone.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And I think you named, so you basically you're saying Stone Cold, The Rock, and The Undertaker.
That's like from a casual's perspective. Right. Like that's I don't even think the cream of the crop. Like someone that you would know, you'd be like, you probably would name these guys from like the 70s and 80s that just were like, the golden era of bodybuilding, just at a different level.
And they're so what I would say is, you're exactly right. He this is well said. I would go Macho Man Randy Savage, Bobby Heenan, who wasn't a wrestler, he was a manager. So Chris, there's another segment of personalities that are not actually wrestlers, but they like accompany the wrestler to the ring. They're the manager, the mouthpiece. That's the lingo. They're called mouthpieces, like Paul Heyman. And
that's awesome.
They never wrestle. They just talk and do interviews. And I would say Bobby Heenan, listen, if anyone out there wants to laugh, just listen to a fucking Bobby Heenan interview. It's crazy. And then you have Gene Okerlund. So you have the interviewer, you have the host also as a fucking personality. Mean Gene. Everyone knows Mean Gene. So either Joe knows even Joseph Mark knows who Mean Gene Okerlund is. It's just God. It's just so cool.
Just do it. You got to come up with three wrestlers.
So
I notice it's hard.
I'm going Macho Man Randy Savage. I'm gonna go. I like. Should I go The Rock? No.
Just rattle off names. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I feel like The Rock. You'd be like, nah, man, he's too modern.
Yeah, exactly. He's too popular.
Hulk Hogan. Why would no one has said Hulk Hogan?
Hogan was good.
He's too vanilla for me.
Lex Luger, Sting, Macho Man Randy Savage.
Oh shit.
Scott Hall, Kevin Nash. We have now I'm just gonna start naming
you just reminded me of
these guys. Remember Disco Inferno? God. Alex Wright. They had a tag team actually together called the Dancing Fools. And so wait, there's more I'm missing. Diamond Dallas Page, DDP. Okay. Who's ridiculous. I like some of the newer ones. I like Seth Rollins. I like John Cena. I like Randy Orton. I like CM Punk. I like.
Is CM Punk good? Like I only know him from like pop culture and how he tried to make a entrance into UFC, but as a wrestler, like was he like a legit performer within the wrestling theater?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The reason why he was gone for a few years because him and Vince McMahon had a terrible falling out, and he left professional wrestling and then he started training to be UFC. But now that you said that, Chris Jericho, also one of my favorites.
He's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So CM Punk went to AEW, which is another wrestling stable, but it's rivaling WWE right now, and I think Vince McMahon is pretty shook about it because a lot of wrestlers are leaving WWE to go to AEW. So
why do you think that is? Why do you think it's not from the wrestlers leaving angle, but from the fans' popularity angle? Why do you think AEW is gaining popularity?
I think it's because it's more of an old school, as you said before, Joe, Attitude Era wrestling. It's Vince McMahon, Triple H. I can't believe we've talked this long and not talked about Triple H. So it's Triple H, Stephanie, and Vince, and Shane Mac had the way they see wrestling now is it's a little bit too commercial. It's the word I would use. And AEW is going back to the old school, late 90s, early 2000s. We're just going to be about the fucking wrestlers and the stories. And so I think a lot of people are jumping ship because they like the project. It's more of a process over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
well, because I would say, it's like, did you notice, as someone who is a fan of wrestling, did you notice a change?
Yes.
in the feel of it when wrestlers started to make their way to Hollywood, right? Because Hulk Hogan did it, The Rock did it in a big way. He's now, I think, one of the highest paying, if not the highest paid actor. See, what is the other guy's name?
John Cena.
John Cena is trying to do the exact same thing The Rock did. So, like, now that there is almost like that wrestling for some guys has become an entry point into like mainstream Hollywood. Like, has that changed? Is that what you're saying? Like, has that changed how wrestling, the feel of it?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And it's changed how the storylines are written in WWE, because there's what a lot of people don't know is they're writers. It's like a show. There's writers, and there's Vince McMahon, but Vince McMahon has the final say. And Vince McMahon having the final say is what ultimately, what you said earlier, Chris, to CM Punk, is he didn't like him, so he's just like, fuck you. I'm not putting you over. Not happening.
Yeah, it's like SNL. He's like, no, you're not getting into any of these sketches.
Yeah, pretty much. And so there's a team of writers, but Vince McMahon has the ultimate say. And I think the Hollywood aspect of all this has kind of, I don't want to say jeopardized, but tainted. Maybe I can use that word. I would say tainted. And AEW is removed from that. So it's all pure independent circuit wrestling. And that's why people are migrating more to AEW, because they see WWE as some kind of commercialized like television product, where AEW is like, this is why I like wrestling. This is pure wrestling, if that makes sense.
I'm getting a mental flash of like Vince McMahon before and after he became a wrestler, because now that guy is just chunked up on the juice, man. He's looking swole.
But he's always looked like that. Well,
wasn't
not
he
as
like skinny?
No,
he was skinny guy, wasn't he? No.
When I started watching, he was always big, but I don't think he was as
big dude,
like ripped as he is now. But he was always big.
He's hitting the TRT.
No, I think he's on the HGH, definitely. But Vince McMahon used to wrestle. He used to.
That's what I'm saying. He used to perform.
Yeah.
I remember there was a point when he wasn't a performer, and then he became part of the storylines. Then his daughter became part of the storylines. And then didn't Triple H marry his daughter? I don't know if that was real or if that was part of the storyline.
No, that's real. They have children too. That's real.
Oh, so they're married, but then they also their wrestling personas are also married, and they have like they're part of the storyline. Yeah, I mean that it would be kind of interesting to talk to or like listen to an interview with a wrestling writer who's having to figure out, all right, like next year, where are these like you're right, just like a TV show, where are these characters going? How are they going to interact with each other? How are these relationships going to culminate in a battle or, whatever? It's an interesting, it's definitely an interesting sport. I'm curious I've always heard there's like a dark side to, not like maybe like WWE, but also like, because WWE is like the pinnacle of wrestling, or like UFC, and people might disagree, but like some of these combat sports organizations are at like the pinnacle of combat sports, but you could be in any one of these lower hanging fruit organizations where you get your start, and which might not be as organized, might be a little corrupt, might be a little less savory. So like I've heard with wrestling, there's a lot of drug use. There's just there's a lot of problems. Like what does that go hand in hand with wrestling, or is there another reason why you see that kind of stuff hanging around?
But
because you were alluding to the dark side of wrestling. Yeah. What did you mean by that?
So there's unfortunately, I mean, it's a tough subject to discuss, but we'll do it. There's a lot of suicides and as you said, rampant drug use, but not the conventional drugs, not heroin overdose or anything like that. It's more steroids and a lot of like like methamphetamines, I would say.
Painkillers.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna say.
yeah. A lot of painkillers. So it's more of that, and unfortunately it changes who they are. It changes you as a human when you do that for fucking several years. And you're, for instance, Chris Benoit, he's the perfect example. There's actually a show called Dark Side of the Ring, which everyone should watch. And Eddie Guerrero too. It's sad because you love these wrestlers. They're good personalities. They're good people. They're actually good people, but the pressures of performing every night, and then Chris Benoit's finishing move is a headbutt. So he's jumping off the top rope and headbutting. That was his finisher. So imagine doing that every Monday night. Headbutt finisher, headbutt finisher, headbutt finisher. Yeah, I think you're gonna experience some brain damage after doing that every night. This man is jumping off the top rope and headbutting someone from fucking 20 feet above them. It's crazy. But my overall point, I'm rambling now, but my overall point is the other side of what we don't see in the dressing room. Yeah, it's all glitz and glamour, but we don't see what they're putting their bodies through, how their families are affected, because all of them also have fucking, they're like us. They have lives, they have families, and it's hard, man. It's hard. Imagine being the wife of Chris Benoit, and he's fucking traveling you never see him, and
Yeah.
it's crazy. But yeah, I'm getting emotional. I'm sorry, everyone. It's good because that's a tragic story. Because if anyone doesn't know, he murdered his wife and son, and then he hung himself, and then he committed suicide. And that's what happens when you fucking don't take care of yourself, and that's why brain injuries are very important, and people dismiss that. So sorry. Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I mean it is a sad story. I think, especially if for you if you watched him and were a fan of his performances, you are in a sense celebrating the very thing that slowly ate away at his mental health. I was just, as you were
Exactly,
talking,
yeah.
I was reading it, and it's like it's a tragic story, and you hear it. It's not the only one, and it's not the only
No.
activity, right? You see that in other sports, combat sports, in football, where prolonged concussion related activities create potentially a cocktail of horror, to say the
Yeah.
least.
Yeah.
So
I like that. Yeah.
it is kind of interesting how, and this is, we're going into a different category, but we can talk about it, is like how, as we know more about the brain and the type of damage that concussive behaviors can do to it in the long term, how that will eventually affect sports in general. And this is we're diverging, but this is kind of interesting. Like, Joe, I'm kind of curious to hear your thoughts. I saw an article at one point, and it was saying that how the game of football has changed in a way, and I don't know if this is true. That's all. I'm curious to hear your thought. But it's changed in a way due to the knowledge of the negatives of concussions. So it's changed in a way where players can play longer because the game itself has become a little bit less maybe physically demanding or dangerous. Did you kind of see an article like that, Joe?
Yeah, but with these kinds of sports, there's a level of physicality to them that most fans actually want to see. So it's hard to legislate that kind of physicality out of these sports and entertainment. Um, it's just I just don't see how much further they can push safety in these leagues and these organizations. It's just for me, it's hard to see how that can be done. I think the biggest aspect is trying to help these people once they kind of phase out of their game. That to me, this is where you see a lot of these suicides, these issues kind of pop up because you have these athletes that are in the spotlight and they feed off of that. They live that day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, so on and so forth. And once that's gone, that there's not much there for them to look forward to. And then they kind of spiral into a pit of despair. I think it's incumbent on, and it's especially the WWE, to help these wrestlers retire better, to give them a little bit more emotional support and financial support so that they don't kind of fall into that pit. Because I heard stories with the professional wrestlers how they kind of just fall off the map if they don't have like a Rock story or a John Cena story of having a fallback to continue their life.
Yeah, well, and it's like The Rock, for example. I mean, I can't really recall like his performances, but I would imagine there are certain wrestlers that part of their character is doing certain actions, like you just described, Rob, like the headbutting or these like epic aerial maneuvers where like what is kind of making you loved by the fans is it's like a video game, right? It's good. It's going to take more of your life, to do that act, to do that particular move over and over and over and over again. Whereas I feel like The Rock was maybe a little bit more conservative in how he wrestled, and that's why he's been able to sustain as long as he has, and also kind of like age really well. I mean, The Rock of today, I would say, looks better than The Rock of like 20 years ago, and he's in his 50s now. So yeah, it's interesting. You're right though, Joe, because it's like how, like with football, for example, if the safer you make it, the more you change the very game itself. So it is kind of an interesting question when people are talking about like, all right, we got to like do all of these things to fight against concussions and make the game more safe. But then again, on the other hand, it's like, but what is the game? The game is like, it is the reason why we enjoy watching it to a degree is because of the very thing that makes it dangerous for a practitioner in the long term.
Yeah.
So it is a catch-22.
Exactly right. I think your last point is the most salient, and it's because the reason why we watch these sports is because they're doing these dangerous things, essentially. And yeah, it's the amount. I think there's no other sport, and football. You can do NFL, you can do hockey, you can do soccer, you can do um, baseball, basketball, whatever, rugby, golf. No one likes golf though. Actually, a lot of people like golf. I shouldn't say that, but and um, and they the amount of wrestlers that have died in their mid-30s is just ridiculous, and and that speaks to the toll of where we're going to go full circle back. It's because there's so you have to be a professional athlete and you have to be a professional actor to be a wrestler. You got to be both, and it's really hard, and people don't understand that. They think it's some kind of like nonsense thing, but in order to be The Rock, Stone Cold, Undertaker, you need to be elite acting and elite athlete. And so to your point, Chris, yeah, it pushes people to limits that you get into like the gray area. That's what I'm saying. It's a little dangerous.
Oh, I mean, it's
not.
yeah.
Sorry
Go
to
ahead.
interrupt, but not even the deaths that have occurred. It's just like the debilitating injuries that they suffer. I remember like Scott Hall. He's like a shell of himself, and I didn't know that until I watched The Wrestler, which is partly based on his life. And then look, Bret Hart, he suffered numerous strokes, and the fact that a lot of these guys are considered independent contractors as opposed to actual employees to me is just nuts. They, I feel like maybe that's part of the reason why AEW is kind of taking off within the wrestling like the wrestler category. But I feel like with WWE, they need to take better care of their athletes, especially after they're retired.
So I have a question for you, and then we're coming up on an hour, so I don't want to keep you guys too long if you have other things to do. But this is the question I wanted to ask, and it kind of pertains to wrestling, but also really any type of physically demanding activity, sport, let's say. So football, hockey, because these are it takes a toll on your body. You play football at a high level, you're going to have probably some when you're in your 40s, 50s, depending on what position you play, you're going to have some issues. I would imagine it's fairly similar for hockey as well, and definitely for wrestling. My question is, right, you're an adult, you're choosing an activity, and you're choosing an activity that potentially could have maybe I think with wrestling too, it could have you're doing it for the glory, you're doing it for either the celebrity, the feel of the audience, whatever words you want to use. Like you are going into this activity because you want to be in it. Like you're not you're not being pushed into it. You're not being, you know what I mean? Like you made a choice. If you're a football player, you've made a choice, you've sacrificed to get to that position. Same with hockey, and you get to benefit potentially from all that comes with being, an athlete at the highest level. If you're a football player, you financially you might be really well compensated, right? So is that just come part and parcel with the endeavor of which you chose? And it's not really like, well, we now need to take care of you because you sacrificed. It's like, well, no, you made a sacrifice. Like anything else, you sacrificed and you got hopefully compensated in some way for that sacrifice. But you paid the piper. Like that was your choice. That's what you chose to sacrifice. Where someone else who doesn't choose to sacrifice like that in their elder days might be more physically intact because they were unwilling to make that sacrifice. So I guess the question comes down to it's like human choice, and should others be held accountable for the choice that you made and the potential long-term side effects of that choice? Joe, I think you got your hand up.
So they definitely made that choice. I can easily say as someone who watches football regularly and someone who used to love wrestling, it's a choice that they made, and I'm pretty sure most of them, at least 90% of them, would easily make that choice over again if they had to. The thing is, with the well compensated performers, not all of them, if anything, a majority of them are not well compensated. Only the cream of the crop really get big money. And I think it's the responsibility of those organizations that use the 90% of the talent who helps bring up the 10% that actually brings in most of the money, to take care of them once they are done with their career. Because I think it's a bit unfair to just chew them up and spit them out whenever they're not useful to you anymore.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't really have I mean, that makes sense. I can see it from that perspective as well. It's a weird thing because you hear it a lot. Because you guys know, like the only sport I really watch is UFC or full, MMA,
Yeah.
and that is also a kind of a common complaint amongst, I guess, with the UFC specifically, that fighters are not compensated to the degree of which they should be compensated. So I've thought about that question or that argument, and I go both ways with it. I can see it from a variety of perspectives.
Why is that?
Yeah.
Is it based on because of the revenue that UFC makes off of that fight? They're entitled to more.
Well, I mean, that is an argument that some people make. Yeah, they'll say something like, because you can, especially with pay-per-view events of any sort. Like I would imagine it's the same with wrestling events. Like I think those numbers become known. Like you can find out the pay-per-view numbers for a given activity, and then based off that, you can see just alone with pay-per-view numbers how much revenue was generated. And I think with a lot of these activities, you can also find out how much a company was paid for, or how much a performer was paid for. Like WWE, I think that's a publicly traded company. You might be able to find out what their people make. It's possible. So with the UFC, I think people have made the complaint all the time, actually, depending if you go on Reddit, that the amount of money that the UFC makes for a given event and the amount of money that different fighters at different levels get compensated, many would say is like not fair, just to say the least. It's not fair, or they should get a larger percentage of the pot. And I've heard arguments for that, and I've also heard arguments as to why that shouldn't be the case. And from my perspective, both make sense depending on how you look at it. Because with the UFC, this is a different thing. UFC is like potentially putting on events every weekend. Some are pay-per-view, some are non-pay-per-view. And they keep many fighters on the roster, and they guarantee you at least 3 fights a year. And they have a huge staff. So like I've heard from one perspective, it's like, if we start to increase salary significantly, we'll just have less fighters on the roster and less people are getting paid. So pretty much like the one argument is this: we're feeding a lot of mouths. You might not get as big a bite, but we're able to feed a lot of fighters. Like a lot of fighters are able to fight. Your paycheck might not be in the millions, but a lot of people can get good paychecks. And then people on the other hand of the argument would say, you're making this much money in pay-per-view revenue. By extension, your fighters should be getting a larger percentage of that pay-per-view revenue. So it kind of goes. It's an argument back and forth. But also to like healthcare and things like that, and long-term healthcare. I've seen people say like, even if you're not fighting in the UFC anymore, you should be getting healthcare through the UFC. And I mean, I don't know if I don't have an opinion. I don't have a dog in the race, as they say.
But I think that's what Joe was alluding to. It's and so I can speak from the NHL's perspective. A lot of people are suing the NHL because they're not taking care of the player to, as you said, Chris, where you're putting your body through a lot, and it's purely for someone else's entertainment. It's like a gladiator. I think that's the best analogy. And when your fucking brain goes to shit and turns to mush, no one is helping you. And I think it's the NFL's dealing with a lot of that CTE issue as well. So it's an ongoing. I actually like. I'm not saying this to say that I have an opinion on it either. Like I don't know, but I want to research more. But it is a topic, and it is something that's actively happening right now.
Okay, so we've been talking about this for a better part of an hour. Just to wrap it all up, since you guys are about to go watch one of these pinnacle matches of the year, what is one thing that you're looking forward to and hope to witness this evening? We'll start with you, Rob.
I'm looking forward to the cameo because I know Vince asked someone to come in as the 29th wrestler, and it's going to be. I hope it's Cena. That's what I want.
You're hoping.
Yeah.
Now, and how when you as it gets closer to the night's festivities, are you going to start to get anxious? Are you going to start to get hyped? How
No,
much
definitely
how much are
excited.
you looking forward to watching tonight's event?
Definitely excited. Yeah, the Rumble is probably I think it's better than WrestleMania in my opinion, because the WrestleMania is too like I it would be the way I can describe it is it would be like the Oscars versus the like SAG Awards, where the Rumble is more for the peers. The peers love you. It's a peer thing. The Oscars are the glitz and the glamour, and then like all the pageantry.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's for the
Yeah,
masses to
yeah,
watch
yeah.
the
But
royalty
but the rum
throw a party for
but
themselves.
the real wrestling fans, the Royal Rumble is number one.
And will you have yours and Steve Austin's favorite drink in you at the time?
Oh yeah, Steve. They're called Steve Weisers, Corvo. I'm gonna be a couple Steve Weisers deep. Yeah, probably.
And did your love of this beverage stem from your love of watching Steve Austin
That's an
perform?
awesome question.
Can we trace it back that far? Like when
mm,
I grow up one day, I'm gonna drink like Steve
I'm gonna
Austin
drink-
drinks.
No, I think it came from fucking. This is gonna get deep. I think it came from Days of Thunder, where they're
What?
Yeah,
Really?
that's a great movie actually. If
is,
if
no
anyone's seen
doubt.
that movie, let me just go through the cast of that movie. First of all, Randy Quaid, uh, Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman, Robert Duvall, J.C. Quinn. So who we all know, you know what I'm saying? This is
Yep.
and there's I'm missing. Oh, there's more. Carrie Elways and fucking who's the other guy? He played Joe. Who was the guy that was throwing darts? Michael Rooker. In like the Marvel movies. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, Michael
Guardians of the
Rooker.
Galaxy.
Yeah,
Wow,
Michael Rooker.
that's crazy.
Yeah. So look at that cast, first of all, and they were Robert Duvall was crushing Budweisers, and I used to want to be a race car driver when I was younger. So I think
Wow.
that's where it came from.
I didn't know that. Were you a watcher of? Did you watch like NASCAR?
I did, but
This is a conversation for a different day.
Yeah.
I did not realize that you were a NASCAR fan. Damn.
No, I'm not a NASCAR. I wouldn't say I'm a NASCAR fan. I would say I like Formula One better.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I like auto racing in general. Is what I would say. Yeah.
Interesting. All right, Joe. What about you? Are you? I know you're reluctantly going to attend this event tonight.
He is. He's coming.
You will make it there, but
Oh,
you will make
man.
it there with a slight frown because you would rather be in your warm home.
No. So I kind of want to be there because it's going to be easier for me to go from point A to point B on Sunday.
There you go.
Okay.
It's just
So
tracking.
his
through
reasons
this.
are all logistical. It's always logistics with Joe.
It's
like,
pragmatic.
yeah, I'm looking forward to going to this because when I go to work the next day, it'll make my commute a little shorter.
Yeah.
Pragmatism. I love it.
Mhm.
All about logistics. Okay, go ahead. So, but are you excited at all now that we've talked about WWE wrestling for an hour and now you're getting ready to go to this pinnacle match around all of these fans? Are you not starting to warm to the idea?
Nah. I mean, I don't know a lot of these wrestlers, so it's a little different for me. I will say, like I said earlier in the beginning of the podcast, this is my favorite. It was my favorite wrestling event. Just to see all those wrestlers and that chaos in one ring, and it's kind of has this kind of bring it back to Marvel, this Avengers kind of thing where you see characters that you don't normally see interacting with each other. That to me, that was awesome. Like you get to when I was a kid, you got to see Big Boss Man kind of fight like Hulk Hogan, and you don't see that a lot. It's like a B level character versus an A level character. They all kind of
Yeah, that's a good point.
play against each other. I am interested to see what this cameo might be. I think it would make most sense to have John Cena in because he's kind of blowing up a little bit with Peacemaker
exactly
TV show. Yeah,
so it makes sense. I know the guy that's hosting us. He has a little bit of a box going on where whoever wins, we get a certain amount of money. So that should be interesting. That'll make it interesting for me to watch it. But yeah, I will have fun watching this more because if it was like something like WrestleMania or SummerSlam or something like that, I would be totally zoned out. But Royal Rumble to me is just so much fun.
Yeah. Royal Rumble. Well, that's well said, Joe. Sorry, Chris. Royal Rumble is for the fans. This is the true event. This is the true event.
Well, maybe tonight I will have to find a way to observe this event as well through my means. And while you guys are together, think of me. Take a beverage, drink it to the crow.
The Steve Weiser. Have a Steve Weiser.
I will have to do that so I can be connected to you guys from a distance.
You're gonna have to slam it like Steve does too.
Yeah, you gotta shotgun it exactly.
Knock it back. Well, if I look like Steve and I had the digestive system of Steve, maybe I'd do that. Well, guys, hey, thanks. This was fun to talk about because wrestling is it's an interesting art form. I always call it that. Like it's an amazing thing that we live in a world where it exists. Like that's all I can say. It's a very cool thing that grown men and women can get paid to play these, larger than life characters and jump and leap and throw each other and jump off things and do flips in the air, all for the joy of their spectators. And like that kind of it's awesome. I mean, like it's crazy that a father and son, all these families, it's a family event. I mean, it's kind of crazy that like there are characters that a father liked and now has got to share with their kids, or a mother liked they get to share with their kids. It's like this activity, this event, this form of entertainment, which is I don't know, that's awesome. So
I think you said it best so my final note is like I think you said it best when you compared it to like Russell Crowe and The Gladiator. This is what it is. This is our modern day Coliseum. That's wrestling.
You not entertained. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of to go to you, Joe. It'll be kind of interesting in the future, like with Marvel. I'm surprised that they haven't just tried to figure out a way to have a straight up real world Guardians of the Galaxy and the Avengers, like fighting in a freaking arena. Disney's trying to figure that one out. Try to get into that game. But anyway, gents, I hope you guys have a great time, and I hope one of you wins this bet. And the next time I'm up there, you're buying drinks.
Yeah, we're going out for the Batman movie. We're going out.
Yeah, we'll have to do that.
It's coming. It's getting close.
Yeah, really soon.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw a trailer for it come up. It looks. I'm open to it. I think it could be real interesting, to say the least.
Yeah.
I think he could be a cool.
I like him as Batman.
Yeah, I mean, especially since we had Ben Affleck as Batman. This looked like a freaking
that was terrible.
Retired strongman or something.
Remember when I told you, Corvo? It's like if I made a biopic, everyone about Chris Corvo, he would be played by a beleaguered Russell Crowe. It's true. That's a compliment. That's a high compliment.
just curmudgeon-y, a little old.
Yeah, exactly.
You can look. You're like, oh man, okay, I can see you when you were like in your heyday.
I know, like a salt and pepper beard. Exactly.
Beaten down by life and time.
But it's still Russell Crowe though, so it's still awesome.
Still Russell Crowe, man. I take that as high compliment. I used to have the Gladiator movie on VHS, man. I got that movie. I had it for years. Fantastic.
Yeah, like with like Russell Crowe with a salt and pepper beard, just like sitting at the bar, just contemplating. It's like, what am I really doing here?
Oh,
just by himself.
Yeah, just by
In a
himself.
white beater or something. Just
definitely by
like,
himself. Just
what have I done?
He's the regular. Yeah, he's the regular. Yeah, exactly. All right,
Well,
that's it.
guys, have a great night. Great time chatting with you, and I hope you have a fun time watching
latest.
the latest that the WWE wants to present.